Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Gender and Development Studies, SOGDS. Master of Arts in Women's and Gender Studies, MAWGSR. Second year, MWG 005 Research Methods, common to both specializations. Block 1 Feminist and Gender-Based Research. Unit 1 Epistemology and Gender-Based Analysis, 1.1 Introduction. This unit will introduce you to the concept of gender-based analysis and its importance in the context of feminist research in all the academic disciplines. You will also understand what is meant by feminist epistemologies and gender-based research. Feminist scholars have questioned many assumptions underlying conventional academic knowledge as well as research paradigms. They have evolved research methods which go beyond the conventional paradigms and limited assumptions. Gender-based analysis and gender-based research have been developed to take into account the complexity of social relations and institutions, as well as knowledge systems. Feminist research methods try to overcome the limitations of conventional research and knowledge by highlighting the important role of the researcher, her subjectivity, location and experiential reality. Such factors must be taken into account for a better and more complete research process. Let us now look at the objectives of this unit. 1.2 Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to discuss what is gender-based analysis, why has it developed, and what is its significance. Explain what is meant by feminist epistemologies and research methods. Discuss different research methods which take gender into account and explain some of the important principles in gender-based research, including location, reflexivity and experience. 1.3 Gender-based analysis. In the beginning of the unit, it is important to understand what is meant by gender-based analysis. Conventional scientific paradigms and research methods are deeply invested with gendered constructs. Entry of women into research is not, by itself, a sufficient condition to bring about significant alterations in theories and methods. However, the entry of women into academic research, in substantial numbers, has become an essential part of the process of change. Women have questioned prevailing paradigms which were androcentric, male-centered. Feminist critiques of scientific method have demonstrated the flawed assumptions underlying many conventionally accepted accounts of the natural world as well as social phenomena. Feminist scholars have analyzed the prevailing theories and methods, and it is widely accepted by now that there is a role and place for gender-based analysis in every academic discipline as well as research methodologies. Gender-based analysis has evolved and grown in its concerns during the past 4 decades. Scholars have identified 3 stages in which gender analysis has been carried out since 1970. Desai, 2009, P.X. Shi. Initially, the emphasis was on sex differences and the extent to which such differences might be based on biological makeup of individuals. In the second stage, the focus shifted to sex roles and socialization, exposing gender as the product of specific social arrangements. In the third stage, gender was recognized as a central principle in the organization of all social systems including work, politics, everyday interaction, families, economic development, law, education and so on. It is also recognized that the experience of gender varies across different classes, castes, races, nationalities and so on. Feminists understand. Scholars use a gender lens through which they are able to understand the different dimensions of gender in any given phenomenon. What do we mean by a gender lens? Box No 1.1. Gender lens. We mean working to make gender visible in social phenomena, research methods and academic disciplines. When we use a gender lens, we ask if, how and why social processes, standards and opportunities differ systematically for women and men. We also try to see in what ways gender inequality is linked with other systems of inequality. Looking at the world through a gender lens thus implies two things. First, it means unpacking assumptions about gender that pervade academic, research and social life in general. Second, it means explaining how assumptions about gender continue to be centrally important in organizing the world. Scholars have shown how our ideas about gender influence the words we use, the questions we ask, and the research we undertake. Diverse research methods have developed that take due account of gender as a principle of social organization. Through the gender-based research carried out during the past few decades, it has been established that gender operates at multiple levels. It shapes identities and perceptions, practices and institutions. If we do not see gender in social phenomena, we are not seeing those phenomena clearly and fully. Conventionally, gender has been a blind spot. Today, if scholars want to overcome this blind spot, they can make use of feminist research methods that have evolved over the years. Box No. 1.2. Feminist scholars point out that all conventional academic disciplines are androcentric, male-centered. Most teaching of science or social sciences privileges male viewpoints and actors. Women's voices and ways of seeing are still frequently neglected. Gender analysis is essential in research in subjects which focus on women. However, gender analysis and feminist research methods are relevant in many more areas, across the various disciplines, whether or not the subject studied focuses on women as such. Feminist scholars are going deeper to try and understand the underlying problems and assumptions which affect all the disciplines. They are therefore questioning the conventional understanding of knowledge itself, challenging it as incomplete since it fails to include gender and women's concerns. To remedy this situation, however, simply adding women to the existing knowledge systems will not be enough. Rather, many different aspects have to be reconsidered and redesigned, including the research methods and the underlying epistemologies. Before going further, let us now look through what is understood by feminist epistemologies. 1.4 Feminist epistemologies. You have just read that feminist scholars have questioned the entire domain of academic knowledge. In fact, they have challenged the conventional understanding of knowledge itself. Feminist scholars have gone ahead to develop a more satisfactory and complete understanding of knowledge and research. They have developed feminist epistemologies, that is, ways of understanding knowledge, which take gender into account. The term, feminist epistemologies, has been used in different ways to refer to women's ways of knowing, women's experience, or else simply women's knowledge. None of these terms were used in conventional epistemology. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy that deals with theories of knowledge. Feminist epistemologists have questioned whether a general account of knowledge is at all possible. They insist that all knowledge is of particulars. They bring up the limitations of knowledge which ignores the social context and status of the knower. Knowledge is profoundly influenced by these factors. Alcoff and Potter point out that knowledge produced and authorized by people in dominant political, social and economic positions may not apply to others in the same society, who are in a dominated or deprived position. Feminist epistemologies seek to provide for a better, more complete account of the nature of human knowledge. Alcoff and Potter, 2000, pp. 1-5. Box No. 1.3. Feminist epistemologies are characterized by a pull between concrete and universal, and between subjective and objective. They deal with the politics of knowledge and the impact of social status as well as the femaleness, maleness of the knower upon the production of knowledge. Feminist epistemologies try to establish legitimacy for the ways in which women understand the world, and for feminist commitments to the struggles of women. Often the feminist epistemologies clash with traditional epistemological commitment to positivist or post-positivist accounts of knowledge that have consistently undermined women's claims to know. Feminist work in epistemology began with critique of tradition and has gone on to reframe the conventional theories of knowledge. There is no one theory that feminists are offering as an alternative to the conventional understanding. The feminisms are diverse, although they have one thing in common: to unearth the politics of epistemology and reconstruct it on newer, more self-conscious grounds. This reconstruction draws upon ethics and political philosophy as well. Feminist theories of knowledge include, but are not limited to, gender issues. It is often assumed that feminist epistemologies must be limited to gender issues, but this is not true. Gender itself is seen not as an abstract or universal category, but as a category of analysis which is fleshed out in particular sociopolitical contexts. Gender cannot be seen or understood in isolation. It is in fact a component of complex interrelationships with other factors and systems of hierarchy. Therefore, feminist epistemologies are not necessarily committed to gender as the only, or even the primary, axis or oppression. Feminist epistemologies do not see gender as separable from other axes of oppression in particular social formations. However, feminist epistemologies do all include gender as an extremely significant category. There is a strong consensus among feminists today that must take gender into account in multiple ways. But at the same time it must be more inclusive rather than limiting itself to analysis of gender only. That is, class, caste and other sociopolitical categories that have also been neglected by traditional knowledge need to be taken into account, along with gender. Thus, we find that feminist epistemologies are concerned with inclusion of all hitherto marginalized categories. They are concerned with women. But not only with women are they concerned also with the marginalized voices of others, working classes, Dalits, blacks, oppressed nationalities and so on. Moreover, feminist epistemologies also provide space to the experiences of men who are at different places in the grids of power, some in dominant but many in marginalized positions. Feminist scholars seek to go beyond the conventionally objective, patriarchal knowledge. They have developed a more complete and a better notion of objectivity, which takes the subject of the knower into account. Conventional knowledge claimed that the subject of the knower made no difference to the knowledge. This led to the positivist and empiricist methods and models, which have been rejected or reworked by feminist theorists. Lorraine Code, for instance, argues that mainstream epistemologists thought the knowing is universal, because everybody is likely to see any particular object of study in the same way, if looking from sufficient distance. However, this assumes that objects are studied from a distance. Feminist scholars question this assumption, noting that in fact objects are best studied from close up. If we look at the case of knowing other human beings, it becomes clear that our understanding is very different if we look from far or from near, and is in fact interactive in nature. Thus so-called objective knowledge is actually heavily biased, in accordance with the perspectives and biases of the knower observer. Code, in Alcoff and Potter, pp.15-48. 1.5 Standpoint Epistemologies, Location, Subjectivity, REFLEXIVITY, Experience. To attain knowledge that is more grounded and satisfactory, standpoint epistemologies have been developed by feminist thinkers. Standpoint epistemologies acknowledge and validate different accounts offered by different knower observers, who are situated at different positions with regard to the object of knowledge. Standpoint epistemologies validate subjective knowing but at the same time, make every attempt to achieve objectivity. The main contention with conventional epistemologies is that far from being universal, all knowledge is in fact mediated by the knower, who has a particular standpoint, as well as social and historical context. Unless we acknowledge this, we falsely consider one person's idea of knowledge to be universal. In fact his, her standpoint and contexts will substantially influence the knowledge gathered by her, him. Does this mean that all knowledge is relative? Sandra Harding argues that this is not so. Standpoint epistemologies can in fact increase and strengthen our ability to achieve objectivity. The epistemological justification of this approach rests on the validity of subjective knowing. Standpoint epistemology claims that in stratified societies, the experiences and interpretations of those at the margins of society can provide valid and rich starting points for thought. The experiences and reflections of marginalized people provide particularly significant problems to be explained. Harding, in Alcoff and Potter, pp. 49-82. Feminist scholars argue that it is important for a knower to acknowledge her, his particular standpoint, perspective and social position. That is, the researcher should reflect upon one's own position, especially with regard to the issues being studied. He should then articulate and state one's position, perspectives and possible biases. This is known as reflexivity on the part of the researcher. Our position and perspective will determine our view of reality. Moreover, research often begins as a personal search, and whatever we know is mediated through the self of the knower. Thus, intimate knowledge of the self not only precedes but always accompanies understanding. Perceptions are processed through the complex web of personal meaning and values. Goldberger, et al., in Shaver and Hendruck, 2006, p.201-228. Empathetic seeing and feeling is a central feature in the development of such knowledge. Feminist thinkers explicitly recognize the interconnections between social theory and practice, and recast the role of the intellectual in terms of everyday life. The specific situatedness or location of the knower, researcher, is considered extremely important. Based on their specific locations in society, people have different experiences. Their perspectives on reality are vitally influenced by these. Hartsock, in Eisenstein, 1979, pp. 60-64. Writes that most of the women have learned that it is important to build their analysis from the ground up, beginning with their own experiences. Feminist standpoint epistemologies perceive each human being as socially located, her, his experiences grounded in a particular existential situation. Just as there is no typical researcher or thinker, there is no typical subject of research. There is no typical woman, or typical worker, typical peasant etc. The subjects of knowledge are multiple, heterogeneous, and contradictory or incoherent, not unitary, homogeneous, and coherent as they are for empiricist epistemology. Harding, 2004, page .65. Rather than generalizing, the foremost challenge is to grasp the particulars, the specificities. In this way, we seek to understand the nature and implications of each and all of these lives even when their experiences are contradictory and mutually conflicting. By respecting the diversities of experience, more nuanced and grounded knowledge will emerge. Conventional positivist research is sometimes called hygienic research, since it imputed a pure objectivity to the researcher, who observed from a distance and did not in any way get involved, affect or influence the object or phenomena studies. This led to mystification of the researcher and researched as objective instruments of data production. In feminist standpoint epistemologies, this mystification is replaced by the recognition that personal involvement is not dangerous but is rather the condition under which people come to know each other. Oakley, 1984. Empathy, involvement and commitment are reclaimed as valid. It is the construction of knowledge by detached spectators that leads to false and distorted pictures. Such an approach to theory building is in line with subaltern school and oral history approaches, emphasizing as they do the importance of history. Sociology, from below. 1.6 Feminist research and research methods. Feminist research and research methods are greatly influenced by feminist epistemologies, especially standpoint epistemologies, which have been introduced and discussed in the previous sections 1.4 and 1.5. Here, you are being introduced to the concepts of feminist research and its methods. For researchers, this means close attention has to be paid to one's own location and position. By reflecting on one's own position, biases and motivations, one can provide a reflexive account of one's own perspectives. Vis-a-vis the work at hand. This helps the research to be more honest and grounded. One's own experiences are respected and acknowledged, as well as the experiences of one's subjects, the subjects of the research. In addition, by placing different perspectives together, the research attempts to get as objective a picture of reality as is possible. Many feminist researchers have used gender as an analytical category to develop an understanding of women's oppression and to identify strategies for change. Feminist research and writing is inherently political because it seeks to ultimately bring about a change in power relations between women and men. It provides resources that support struggles for gender equality. According to Gross, feminist research openly accepts its position as dependent on particular contexts, interests and perspectives. It establishes and employs criteria of validity, different from those inherited from patriarchal traditions. It recognizes continuities and links between the subjects and objects of knowledge. Different subjects may, in fact, produce different forms of knowledge. Moreover, feminist scholars go beyond problematic assumptions of patriarchal texts and explore the territory from different points of view, with different methods and interests. Feminist knowledge is concerned not only with facts and truths, but also with autonomy and political effectiveness. Mainstream knowledge rendered it impossible for ordinary women to represent themselves and their interests. Feminist research is rendering female autonomy and self-representations possible. Gross, 1988, pp. 92-104. It is helping bring out alternative facts and frameworks which allow more voice and space to women. Masculine knowledge systems generally claim to be universal, while feminist theory openly states that knowledge is necessarily limited. It recognizes that knowledge is partial, representing only some perspectives and possibilities. It also acknowledges that it is invested, in the sense that it champions certain interests. It acknowledges that each scholar has some limitations and biases, which will creep into every research project. It is important to identify and be aware of these biases and limitations. Box No. 1.4. Feminist research goes beyond male-biased theories and norms to create a genuinely neutral knowledge. As active producers of knowledge, women become agents of their own empowerment. From being objects, they become subjects of knowledge. In this process, feminist scholars have created new methodological criteria, perspectives and modes of analysis. They have challenged the foundations of mainstream knowledge systems, including its epistemological assumptions. Feminists have devised a number of strategies to challenge the prevailing patriarchal methods and frameworks. They have created counter-knowledge by developing women-centered perspectives. They have developed areas left out by the prevailing male-centered knowledge domains. They have reclaimed and expanded upon knowledge that was neglected or suppressed. Contemporary feminist research is effectively questioning the basic frameworks in which knowledge is conceptualized and suggesting new frameworks. Patriarchal and sexist forms of knowledge have been superseded. Feminists have reclaimed other ways of knowing and understanding and opened up new directions and visions in diverse branches of knowledge. Their contributions are not separate or add-on, rather they question basic assumptions within science, social science and the humanities. Feminist contributions make us look anew at our motivations as knower, our assumptions and preconceived notions. Feminist research today uses a greater variety of sources, since it has an expanded domain of study. It is particularly handy at using oral history sources, including a range of interviews with individuals and collective group discussions. Feminists utilize sources like personal journals and diaries, memoirs and fragmentary writings, to build up understanding of particular lives and the social contexts in which those lives were lived. Before going ahead, assess what you have understood in this section by attempting the following questions. 1.7 Diverse examples of feminist research. In this section, you will read about work of contemporary feminist researchers. Sociologist Anne Oakley broke through conventional methods in mainstream sociology in the 1970s by systematically beginning to explore details of women's lives. In the sociology of housework, she focused on talking with women about their lives. The methodology included acknowledging her own experiences and involvement in the problems being studied. She directly challenged male authority in this male-dominated discipline. Step by step, she showed how it defined women out of existence. Even when families were studied, women were not studied in their own right, from their own perspectives. She noted that for centuries, men had been gathering knowledge about themselves in which their concerns were central, and calling it reliable knowledge. Such knowledge confirmed the supremacy of men in the world. Oakley and other feminist researchers have claimed for women the same right to gather knowledge about their own concerns. This knowledge questions male authority and supremacy by establishing the validity of women's experiences and perspectives. Oakley, 1974, in her recent work, Gender on Planet Earth, Oakley argues that men and women have inherited and reinforced a system of gender differences that has a destructive effect on them, their shared humanity, and the planet, showing how every aspect of our lives is dominated by male-female power structures. She compels us to recognize how and why gender inequality has thrown human society out of balance. She argues that the persistence of traditional gender values prevents us from leading more ethical and humane lives. Oakley, 2002. Feminist historians have noted that women's perspectives have been missing in most of the conventional accounts of historical events. They have carried out research on women's lives and perspectives to create more balanced accounts of the past. For instance, Uma Chakravarti and Preeti Gill have edited a volume making visible the conditions of widows in different parts of India, as well as the laws and customs, social strictures and the articulation and agency of these women. They emphasize that this in-depth book is not comprehensive at all, so much more material could be gathered which was not been considered suitable material for social science writing so far. Chakravarti and Gill, 2001. Similarly, Urvashi Butalia's book describing the experiences of women during partition is a classic in its own terms. It utilized feminist understandings to research the lives of ordinary women who had suffered during partition. It was largely based on oral history interviews with women who had migrated across the borders during partition and resettled in the other country, as well as interviews with families of women who were lost or had died, and with concerned officials. What emerged from these interviews is a scathing indictment of patriarchy on the part of the nation-state as well as families and religious communities. Women had suffered untold ignominies and violence, which mainstream historians had failed to access or write about. Butalia, 1998. In the two-volume History of Women's Writing in India, edited by Suzy Tharu and K. Lalita, an incredible wealth of women's writings came to light. Painstaking research was conducted by a team of scholars and translators, working in 11 Indian languages. Although 140 writers were represented in the volumes, the editors note that the collection is in no way exhaustive. In fact, an initial list of some 600 women writers was drawn up, and many more kept being added. Finally, Many could not be included. Tharu and Lalita, 1991, p. 6. The book Home Truths, Stories of Single Mothers explores diverse facets of single mothers' lives in India. Deepti Priya Mehrotra explains her use of feminist methodology in this book. The study focused on eliciting narrative accounts of their experiences from a number of single mothers. The pivot of the research process was listening to these single mothers as they spoke of their lives. Their accounts were recorded and form the core data. Ethical considerations including privacy and confidentiality permeated each step of the research process. I was responsible for designing the research and constructing it as non-hierarchical, mutually enjoyable, and a positive learning experience for all involved. She emphasized that the study was one from within and below, from below, because realities are being seen critically, through the eyes of the researched subjects, and from within because the researcher is an active participant of the group being studied. This is an example of reflexivity, where the researcher acknowledges her own participation, motivation and location vis-a-vis the phenomenon being studied. Mehrotra, 2003, pp. 17-18. In another book, A Passion for Freedom, The Story of Kisanan Jaggi Devi, Mehrotra notes, conventional history has focused on the elite. Subaltern studies and feminist historiography seek to change this and set the balance right. They interrogate class, caste, gender prejudices and biases. Feminist scholarship in India is reclaiming women as actors and doers, seeking to bridge the enormous gaps in knowledge and understanding. Mehrotra, 2007, page 22. Living sources with their rich experiences are being accepted as equally important as the documentary, written sources. Oral history draws out memories, elicits images and experiences, making for a layered understanding of history and social phenomena. Gloria Goodwin Raheja writes about the use of oral traditions including women's songs and life narratives, making a major advance from the earlier colonial, post-colonial and academic textualizations that so frequently have prevented women's speech from being heard or their silences understood. She also notes her own location and its possible influence on the interpretations she may make. Our readings of the songs South Asian women sing today, of the stories they tell and of the memories they narrate to us, are, of course, conditioned by our own positioning, and by the distance between ourselves and the women whose speech we record. Writing down the words of others, and attempting thereby to convey something of the tenor of their lives and the power relations in which those lives are led, is a project always fraught with difficulties both epistemological and political. Raheja asserts that through the songs, we can draw out an understanding of women's resistance to ideologies of gender and kinship that circumscribe their lives. Raheja, pp. 1-6. Leela Dubey, in her book Women and Kinship, Comparative Perspectives on Gender in Southeast Asia, points out that studying kinship and family structures and processes help to build an understanding of gender relations. As is religion, she discusses how the naturalness of males and females, work, and many subtle aspects of gender relations shape, and are themselves shaped by, the kinship patterns in a given society. As she emphasizes, the particularities of a system are crucial to an understanding of the complexities and subtleties of gender relations. Dube, pp. 3-4. Among the areas that feminist research has ventured into is the question of women's rights to land, property and basic means of survival. In the book, A Just Right, Women's Ownership of Natural Resources and Livelihood Security, Nitya Rao writes, similar to land rights, both existing and new water rights need to be examined from both an equity and gender perspective. Women's needs and priorities are usually overlooked. With the emergence of new resources, new spaces are emerging, and it is imperative to intervene at this point in order to secure women's rights over these and put their priorities and needs too on the Agenda. Rao, in Rao and Rurup, eds. pp. 1-7. In her introduction to a volume Signposts, Gender Issues in Post-Independence India, Rajeshwari Sundar Rajan recognizes that issues of gender are central to post-colonial national culture and politics. She further notes that religious fundamentalism and communal and caste tensions are often fought on the site of gender and on women's bodies, and gender gaps in backward development, employment, nutrition, land distribution and inheritance have become impossible to overlook. Women's issues can no longer be isolated, and gender has become a category of analysis in all possible fields, in studies of culture, religion, law, in political analyses of state and civil society, in the sociologies of family and community, in the economics of population, poverty and labor, in official, that is, governmental and administrative concerns such as census, development, population control and projects for the eradication of poverty, unemployment and illiteracy, in the new social movements, Dalit, ecological, tribal, anti-dam, peasant, trade union and self-employed women's associations, Sundar Rajan 2000, pp. 1-3. Feminist epistemologies and research have also extended into the terrain of the natural sciences. The social situatedness of scientific knowledge and its buttressing of male, white, superiority is highlighted by feminists. Feminist research has implications not only within the academic sphere, but equally in all the domains where science and technology are relevant. Feminist scientists seek to search for alternative and better ways to describe and understand the natural world, and create alternative frameworks, models, and ways of gathering and interpreting evidence. 1.8 Let us sum up. In this unit we have looked closely at the meaning and significance of gender-based analysis. We have learned that gender-based analysis is now recognized as important across all the academic disciplines and in domains like development, poverty and access to resources. Recognizing the importance of gender, feminist scholars have developed feminist epistemologies to go deeper into understanding why conventional knowledge systems have been blind to gender concerns. Feminist epistemologies have reformulated the importance of the standpoint, social and political positioning of the knower. According to feminist epistemologies, the biases of the researcher should be explicitly acknowledged. This will lead to a more realistic objectivity than the conventional one, which claimed that the researcher could be completely objective. In fact, recognizing the subjectivity of the knower leads to much more authentic knowledge. Feminist research methods respect that every researcher has his perspective, biases and positioning, so the location of the knower must be taken into account when presenting research findings. Also, the researcher's motivation and experiential base should be made clear. Feminist research methods include standpoint epistemologies that acknowledge the perspectives of different knowers and put these together for a more complete account of the phenomena studied. Feminist research in India and elsewhere is at present an extremely rich area of scholarship, which is throwing up some of the most useful and interesting findings and insights. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.